Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you. So here I wanted to sneak in right at the end of the season here. One last 60 card grass deck. I did kind of allude that I had one more that I was going to be building, and I actually had somebody in the comments of one of my more recent Adventure of Phantom Knights videos ask if I would be building a grass variant of the Phantom Knight deck, and that was actually one of my plans. I was originally thinking about doing like an Adventure DPE 60 card build, but I realized pretty early on in the deck building process that if I did it that way, it was going to be a little bit awkward if I decided to include both Adventure and DPE engines, because they rely on so many one-ofs, right? Like the Adventure engine, you know, if we mill our Fateful Adventure and or our Wandering Griffin Rider, we can't really do that engine anymore. Same with DPE, if we mill, like, even one, well, not even one, if we could mill one of the Malicious, but if we mill Denier or Fusion Destiny, then we're not able to do that anymore either. So I knew I was going to have to take the Phantom Knights build in a different direction if I wanted to make it a grass deck. And so the other engine, the other kind of core, I guess, part of the deck that I decided to include was a Burning Abyss package. As you can see here, we have a whole variety of different Burning Abyss monsters that we're playing in this deck. So the idea is when you're activating grass in this deck that you want to mill a bunch of the Phantom Knights cards, like really one of each of the monsters is ideal to mill, as well as a Wing and a Fogblade would be nice as well. But from the Burning Abyss package, we're looking to mill Graff and or Seer as well. Ideally, we can mill both, and then basically that's going to give us 2 free level 3 monsters to go into a Cherubni without even having to use our normal summon. And with that in this particular build, we're going to have to do a slightly different combo line, obviously, than the Adventure build. Now, we're not going to be able to set up Scythe Locks, and we won't have an Omni Negate like we did with the Griffin Riders. So, in that way, this build is a little bit weaker than Adventure Phantom Knights. However, the end board that it can combo into is still fairly powerful. With a decent grass and maybe like one extender, of which we have plenty, it's not hard to end on a board of the Rusty Bardish plus a Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon plus number F0 Utopic Draco Future. That'll be multiple monster negates. It'll be, because I don't think this is even, no, yeah, this negate effect from Dark Requiem is not once per turn, so that'll be, it should be at least 3 different monster negates, I think even 4, that are going to bring back your Fogblade from the graveyard as well, or your Breaksword. I always get Breaksword and Fogblade's names mixed up, but Breaksword, it can bring that back from the graveyard, as well as potentially your Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon as well. The Dark Requiem's effect being, again, to negate monster effects, destroy them, and then special an Xyz monster from the graveyard. And again, that's also not once per turn. It does have to have Dark Rebellion as a material to get that effect, so make sure that you save detaching Dark Rebellion as a material for last, but yeah, you're able to not only negate multiple monster effects, but also bring multiple Xyz monsters back from the graveyard as well. And then, of course, the F0 Utopic Draco Future can not only negate monster effects, but it can also take control of that monster as well, if that monster was on the field. Also can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, both of which are very relevant, and both of which will come up in the games that we're going to see here after we talk about the deck a little bit more. So in the way of extenders, we've got the Danger package. I thought about including the Psychic engine as well. Psychic Wielder, Psychic Tracer, is that the card's name? And then Emergency Teleport, but decided to include the Danger engine as I thought it was simpler and also can gain advantage cycling, drawing cards, and also special summoning the body. Also included Monster Reborn as an extender, and I'm actually very glad I included this one. The main reason I included Monster Reborn is not only because, of course, we're a graveyard-based deck, but also to bring back Link monsters potentially. To go into like an access code or something. I actually did have Appaloosa. The extra deck, oh my god, the extra deck has actually definitely been the hardest part of building this deck. Just trying to get it down to 15 cards. This is one of those decks, I mean, this is the case for pretty much every single deck, but this is especially one of those decks where I would love to be able to play like even 16, but ideally like 17, 18 monsters in the extra deck. Because I want to be playing everything I've got here, the double Levier being important to go into the F0. The Breaksword, the double Breaksword is actually not to go into F0 as well, but the double Breaksword is to go into both Dark Requiem, or rather Dark Rebellion and then Dark Requiem with one, and then Raider's Knight, and then Arc Rebellion with the other. I would also very much like to have a Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy in this extra deck. I would love to be able to include a Salmon Grey Almirage in this extra deck. And there was one other one that I was really wanting to put in this extra deck. What was it? I think it was something I even took out already too. Oh, Appaloosa, that was the other one. So yeah, I would honestly kill to have 3 more spots in this extra deck. As again, many decks would love to be playing an 18 card extra deck, but this one especially, I think this is the right 15 to play. The thing that I'm really iffy about is a change I made actually while I was testing the build, where I took out Appaloosa for a second Break Sword. That slot I feel like really could go either way. But because we use a Break Sword during our main combo, I feel like we really needed to again, so the second one could potentially go into Raider's Knight and then Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon. It is possible to make a rank 4 without using Break Sword, but it's kind of tricky. You have to use Stained Greaves plus the Shaded Brigandine if you're going to do it that way. Let's see here. Oh, of course, we've got our tour guides as starters. We finally have an excuse to play our playset of tour guides once again. We're playing a Fiendish Rhino Warrior as well. This is good not only for milling off of grass if you need to mill a specific Burning Abyss that you didn't off of grass. You can also summon it, and then your Burning Abyss monsters won't destroy themselves with their own card effects. That is one, of course, thing about the Burning Abyss engine that you do have to keep in mind is that they are very good at swarming the board from your hand or when milled off of grass, but you know, they destroy themselves by their own card effects if you control a non-Burning Abyss monster. You can not only circumvent this with the Fiendish Rhino Warrior, but also if you put them in zones that Cherubini points to, Cherubini says that monsters that are in the zones it points to can't be destroyed by card effects, so the Burning Abyss monsters will not destroy themselves by their own card effects if you do that. Just one of the things you do have to keep in mind of playing this deck. It's a little annoying sometimes, but it doesn't usually come up too much. You're usually able to just vomit out a couple of Burning Abyss monsters, use those to either go into Cherubini or make a rank 3, depending on where you're at in your comboing, and where you're at in the duel, and then from there you can just play out all of your non-Burning Abyss monsters just fine. Alright, I think that actually does just about cover everything I wanted to discuss in the build. Let's go ahead and break it down card by card as always, and then we'll take a look at some gameplay. Playing 2 Effect Veiler, 3 Maxx, 3 Tour Guide, 1 Scarm, Malbranche of the Burning Abyss, 3 Graff, Malbranche of the Burning Abyss, 3 Seer, Malbranche of the Burning Abyss, 1 Alich, 1 Calcab, 1 Farfa, and then 1 Libic. All Malbranches as well of the Burning Abyss there. We're playing 1 Fiendish Rhino Warrior, 2 Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak, 3 Phantom Knights of Silent Boots, 2 Phantom Knights of Ragged Gloves, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Danger, Jackalope, 3 Danger, Tsukinoko, 1 the Phantom Knights of Stained Greaves, 3 the Phantom Knights of Torn Scales, 2 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, 3 That Grass Looks Greener, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 1 Phantom Knights Rank Up Magic, Rank Up Magic Force, that's what it is. 1 Phantom Knights Wing, 1 Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, and then 3 Phantom Knights Fogblade for the 60 card main deck. The extra deck here is going to be 1 number F0 Utopic Future, 1 number F0 Utopic Draco Future, 2 Levier the Sea Dragon, 2 the Phantom Knights of Break Sword, 1 Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, 1 Raider's Knight, 1 Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon, 1 Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon, 1 Cherubini Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardish, and then finally 1 Access Code Talker. Alright, so there, like I said, is the build. Now let's go and take a look at some gameplay. Alright, so the first duel we're going to take a look at is going to be against Branded Thunder Dragon, or Thunder Dragon Despia. It's a little bit of both. It's basically Branded Despia that's also playing a Thunder Dragon package. And I wanted to include this game so we can show a pretty typical opening here. You see we got That Grass Looks Greener. I'm going to go ahead and slam that down, milling a whole bunch of cards off the top of my deck. Now, let's take a look at what we milled here. We did mill a Graff, that's very good. We milled a Seer as well. These are honestly 2 of the main monsters, like I mentioned in the profile, that we want to mill off grass. That's why we're playing 3 of each. We also milled a Torn Scales, very, very nice. Scarm will let us search a tour guide during the end phase for a potential follow-up play if needed. Stained Greaves can offer some extension by summoning a Phantom Knights from hand. We got a Silent Boots as well, so we have something to banish And that way we can summon our Torn Scales. And let's see, we got a Wing in the graveyard as well as an Ancient Cloak. So this is a very nice grass. We honestly milled pretty much every single thing we wanted to from the deck except for Ragged Gloves and Fogblade, are kind of the last two cards. But that's totally fine. We, of course, have plenty of other mills coming up here as well. So we'll trigger the Graff and the Sears effect. Like I mentioned, get a couple of level 3s. So that way we can go into Cherubini. And again, the nice thing about using grass in this way, and just about this build overall, like I touched on before, is that you get to go into Cherubini without even having used your normal summon. As you can see, we do still have our normal summon available here. Alright, and then I will go ahead and summon the Seer over there in order to make the Rusty Bardish. And from there, we can just set up those last couple of cards that we want in the graveyard there, the Ragged Gloves, and we'll set a Shade Brigandine, but I don't think we're actually going to need it for this play. Shade Brigandine, it's kind of funny, you actually don't really need it that much in this variant, I've noticed. You do use it a little bit more when you are playing Appaloosa, which again, I very, very much want to. It's super, super close for that card not making the extra deck right now. But without it, honestly, again, like I said, there's really not that much use for it, aside from potentially making a rank 4 without having to use the Break Sword, which you could do here. We do have the Stained Greaves in the graveyard, but I'm going for a kind of, I guess, more standard-ish combo line. I mean, this is kind of one of those decks where there's not really a standard combo line, just because well, I find that's just often the case with grass decks in general, because you never know what you're going to mill. It's just about milling a bunch of stuff that's good in the graveyard, so. Yeah, that's why it's good in Adamantipator, it's why it's good in Dragon Link, and of course it's why it's good here in Phantom Knight Burning Abyss. One of the things I've talked about quite a bit when playing Adventure Phantom Knight is that the deck is really resilient because it's got a lot of graveyard-based effects, and you naturally put a lot of those cards that have those effects in the graveyard just by comboing. So that way, if your initial turn 1 play isn't enough to keep your opponent from doing whatever they're doing, then you always have a follow-up play because you just got a graveyard full of cards. So with this variant, again, I guess the idea is that we're just setting up our graveyard and doing those quote-unquote backup plays as our initial play. So yeah, like I said here, with a decent enough opening hand, usually Grass plus an Extender is enough to end on a 2900 attack Bardish, a number F0 Utopic Draco Future, and then you see we've got the setup for the Dark Requiem here with the Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, and then the Phantom Knights rank up Magic Force here as well. Opponent's going to actually start by slamming down a Lightning Storm, which, funnily enough, this is actually like one of the main reasons why you don't go into Dark Rebellion or Dark Requiem on your main phase, why you want to wait for your opponents. It's really to bait out stuff like Lightning Storm here, or potential like removal, basically removal against either your rank up Magic or the Dark Rebellion. Here my opponent's going to target attack position monsters, which is totally fine with me because it's only going to hit my Rusty Bardish. Like I mentioned earlier, the number F0 Utopic Draco Future cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and everybody seems to overlook this effect. I actually noticed this even way back, way back when I played Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk, which I've been meaning to go back to at some point. I really need to, but anyway, when I used to play Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk a lot, I noticed people would never, they'd always play into this effect that it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. So opponent's going to do the same here. At this point, I'll go ahead and just go into a Dark Requiem so I have more monster negates. Because my opponent slammed down a Lightning Storm, I think they might be playing Numeron here, or I suspect it anyway. This is proven wrong when they drop a Thunder Dragon, of course, but I wanted to make sure I had multiple monster negates in case it was something like Numeron, or just to have them in general. I'm still going to throw out the Dark Requiem in defense mode, though, because if they're playing one Lightning Storm, they could be playing another, and if I just slammed it in attack mode blindly, it'd be too easy to just play into that Lightning Storm there. So I'll negate the Owlbear with the Dark Requiem and set up the Break Sword from the graveyard as well. Opponent's got a Brain Diffusion, but I've saved an Ash Blossom, specifically for a spell or a trap card effect because I've got monster effects very much on lockdown here, and that Ash Blossom against the Brain Diffusion is going to be enough to get us the concede from the opponent there. So that's a fairly standard, ideal turn 1 for this deck here. Like I said, is to end on the 2900 attack Rusty Bardish, the Dark Rebellion plus Rank Up Spell into Dark Requiem, and the number F0 as well. So there is that duel. Let's take a look at the next one. So this game here, we're going to be playing against a Lunalight FTK deck. I was actually just looking over my opponent's deck and trying to figure out the win con. I think it's number, oh god, what is it, 33, I think, Mashumek? No, Mashumek's not number 33, is it? Whatever one Mashumek is, the one that deals damage when monsters' attack points change, or whether, like, equal to the difference between original attack and current attack, or something like that. It seems like that's the win con here, but I'm not, like, super duper 100% sure. Anyway, here, so this time we didn't open a Grasslook screener, but we did still open, I think, enough here to go for, if not our full turn 1 board, at least most of it. Getting at least the F-Zero out isn't too much difficult. Usually if you can get a Rusty Bardish out, you should pretty much always be able to get a number F-Zero out as well. I'd like to be able to set up the, the Dark Requiem as well if possible. And I think this game I actually did set it up, but I misplayed a little bit here, if I recalled correctly. Anyway, I'll activate the Torn Scales here. And I think I did end up discarding an Effect Failure there. Yeah, I did end up discarding an Effect Failure to send a Ragged Gloves, but I think that's fine. Especially given that our typical boards end on at least one, if not multiple, monster negates. So I'm willing to give up the Effect Failure to extend my plays a little bit more here. Ragged Gloves, like I've talked about again when talking about Adventure Phantom Knights, is kind of my go-to send if I don't know exactly what I want in my graveyard just yet. If I want to keep it kind of open. Then I'll usually end up sending that in order to make sure that, well, like I said, I can keep my plays open there. Okay, so yeah, here I was, I think, just one level 3 monster short of being able to go into the Dark Requiem as well. In fact, I know it, yeah, because I've got the Ragged Gloves out, but I don't actually have the, well, like I said, if I had one more level 3 monster, I could go for the Break Sword, and then I could use that to throw the, what is it, the, now I'm blanking on the monster's name. The Break Sword, I just said it, Jesus. Oh no, I did go for a Break Sword. Okay, throwing that right there. Oh, but this is where I messed up. I remember now. Because I didn't add the rank up spell, I added Fogblade. Because I didn't initially think that I was going to be able to go for the Break Sword, but I forgot that I had the Torn Scales still. So I did actually end up going for the Fogblade instead of the rank up spell like I should have. I thought for a moment that I was in the clear because I was like, oh, I can just go for Raider's Knight. Raider's Knight lets me go into any, Exceeds Dragon, Exceeds Monster. It's one rank higher, so I can go for Dark Requiem. But important thing to note, like I mentioned in the profile, you actually do have to have Dark Rebellion, Exceeds Dragon attached as a material in order for Dark Requiem to get its effects. So, yeah, I did misplay when I was testing the deck here. Thought that the Raider's Knight into Dark Requiem would work. It does not, but we do still have the F-Zero set up as well as a Fogblade face down, so still got multiple monster effect negates here as well as a Maxx. Definitely going to fire off the Maxx pretty much as soon as my opponent summons something, because I actually couldn't remember if this deck had Link 1s or not, so I decided to just go for it right away. The opponent's going to chain a Serenade Dance to get one summon off, before the Maxx resolves, but that's fine. My opponent's going to be summoning more than enough for me to draw. Probably like most of my whole deck, honestly, here, if they got their full combo. Ideally, I would like that not to happen. So when this first Force Strix comes down, I'm like, okay, that's the thing that searches Zephyros, so I'll go ahead and negate that with Fogblade. But then after doing this negate, I thought about it, and I was like, wait a second, because I remember the last time I played against this Lunalight FTK deck, I believe they were using Catapult Turtle as their finisher. And I was thinking, okay, if it's going to be a similar type of thing here, why don't I just wait until they use whatever monster effect they're going to try to, like, finish me with? Particularly if it's like a Catapult Turtle, then I can just F-Zero and take control of it after negating it, and then, then my opponent just can't really do anything at that point. So I'm not going to be using any more of my negates here. I think that is the correct timing to activate your monster effect negates in a situation like this, if you're not just against this specific FTK deck, but I guess if you suspect you're playing against an FTK deck and you've got monster effect negates, sometimes if it's a monster based FTK like this one, it can be better just to kind of hold your FTK or your negation until the very end. That way, also, in case your opponent has the means to stop you, then they won't be able to bounce back. If you stop their combo really early, they might be able to follow up if you're not able to OTK them or just finish them on your next turn. So I end up Ash Blossoming the Wise Strix just kind of to do it, just because I could. Honestly, more than any other reason. And I guess that was enough. I guess that was a specific enough disruption that my opponent wasn't able to win, because they conceded shortly after that. So this is just the second time I've played against one of these Lunalight FTK decks. I'm not super duper knowledgeable on them. I guess if anyone is that's watching, feel free to let me know in the comments if, like, I don't even know if this is a bot, because I know some FTKs are used by bots, but this one seems a little bit involved, I guess. I'm not sure, but in any case, we've got more games to take a look at, including an extremely long one. So let's actually just jump into that one next. Okay, whew. So this game's going to be a doozy. This is actually a 27-turn game, so I'm going to be throwing this on fast forward for most of it, because a lot of it's going to be just a bunch of passing. We're playing against Numerons here, which is funny, because Numerons, usually games against Numerons tend to be pretty quick, but this one was actually, well, I mean, like I said, it was 27 turns, so I'm going to start with a Grass Looks Greener. I'm going to mill a lot of good stuff off of that. We've got a Graff and a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, and I believe, yeah, a Seer as well. But funnily enough, we actually did not mill a single Phantom Knights card off of this grass. Like, look at this. I'm scrolling through my graveyard here. No Phantom Knights monsters or trap cards. So that actually really sucks, and that's really unlucky. I mean, the Burning Abyss monsters that we milled are going to be enough to make plays, but, like, we would have liked, you know, obviously at least some amount of our other cards milled as well. Here, since I opened the Shade Brigandine, I'll just use that to make the Rusty Bardish, because, like I mentioned in an earlier game, Shade Brigandine really doesn't end up having too many uses in this deck. If you're not playing Appaloosa, there's just not that many things you can really go into with it. Again, unless you want to go into a rank 4 potentially later in the game, but even that is a pretty involved setup, so... Alright, now here, yeah, I can bring back the Torn Scale, send the Fogblade, and a Silent Boots as well. I still have my normal summon, so I'll summon the Ancient Cloak, give my Rusty Bardish its attack boost before going into Leviair. Now, I am able to go for an F0 because actually I've got the Fogblade and the Wing in the graveyard here, so I think this is a full combo. I'm trying to remember, actually, if this ends up being a full combo or not. It must be, because I still have a Silent Boots available as well. And I need only one other extender after this Leviair, and I've got two here. I've got the Fogblade and the Wing. So yeah, this is going to end up being another first turn full combo, once again thanks to Grass. Even though we didn't mill any of our Phantom Knights cards, again, milling the Burning Abyss cards was good enough, which is the point of them, again, in the package here, in this particular variant. Like I said, we're going to go for Break Sword, and then Rusty Bardish's effect will pop that Break Sword, bring them back as level 4s, bringing out Dark Rebellion, and then we can use Silent Boots to just get the rank up spell. And then, like I said, from there, we will be good. We'll have our full setup of the F0, the Dark Requiem, and the Rusty Bardish. We've even got the Droplet as well as a Fogblade here for backups as well. So yeah, definitely, again, not a bad turn 1 board to end on. Now you might be wondering, well, if it's an ideal turn 1 board to end on, we even get a tour guide search at the end phase, then how did this duel end up being 27 turns? Well, I'm about to show you how this duel ended up being 27 turns. My opponent had a Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode, which they then attributed for a Kaiju before going into their Numeron OTK. This is definitely like the second, I think, actually no, this is the third time recently that I've gotten Sphere moded, and I'm kind of over it at this point. I'm ready to be done getting Sphere moded. I would like to get off Mr. Bones Wild Ride now. Here I'm going to use a Fogblade to stop one of the attacks, and then I'll use the Droplet, sending the Fogblade on the other one, basically making it so that my opponent is not getting any damage on me whatsoever, and also so that they're taking a bunch of damage themselves, making them easier to finish off. Like, now that they're down to 4,900 life points, we can just summon an Access Code Talker and potentially just win the game that way. This also sends one of their Numeron gates to the graveyard, so that way they can't go for a 4-material Appaloosa. They are still able to go for the Infinitrack Mega Clops, but fortunately we're playing, like, the worst possible deck to be summoning this monster against, because unaffected by other monster effects except those of Xyz monsters, so it's pretty easy for us to just, like, Break Sword this. Bringing back a Rusty Bardish and summoning Torn Scales during the end phase here, because I do have another Fogblade, I believe, if I recall correctly, I do have, yeah, another Fogblade in the graveyard, so I wanted to use one of the two during my opponent's turn, so that way I could use the second one during my turn if I needed to. But I was pretty confident I was just going to win the game here. So I'm just, summoning just a bunch of stuff, including this tour guide in attack mode. Funnily enough, so I've talked about this like a long time ago, but I usually attack with the lowest attack monster first, just out of habit from you know, okay, I'm definitely showing my Yugi Boomer status here, but from when Gore's Emissary of Darkness used to be a thing. But against Numerons, it's actually not how you want to do it because of Numeron Wall. Because after one attack, they're going to summon this and then go to the end phase, so, or the end of the battle phase, rather. So I should have attacked with the Kaiju here. They would have been at 2,700 instead of 3,900, which is going to kind of matter later on, actually. But, yeah, it's a little annoying, but the other thing here is that it's actually not that bad because my opponent's got a monster on the board. They're actually not able to use the Numeron Network effect to copy the Numeron Calling, because Numeron Calling states that they have to have no monsters in play. Now you might be wondering, well, can't your opponent just distribute the Numeron Wall? They actually can't, because you have to have no cards at all on the field in order to do that. So even though I was going to get stopped there, I was like, okay, whatever. They'll just top deck, pass, and I'll win on the next turn, right? Well, as you just saw, as I was explaining, you know, the setup beforehand, but that's definitely not going to be the case. My opponent has another, because the other one's still in here on the graveyard, another Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode. I'm definitely over this card getting dropped on me. Again, I'd like to get off Mr. Bones Wild right now. They've even got the 3,300 Kaiju in response as well. Running over my Moth here, giving me, or allowing me to keep the Sphere mode here. Now, I knew the Sphere mode was going to go back to the opponent during the end phase of this turn. I did remember that effect. What I did not remember for the vast majority of this duel was that I'm actually not allowed to target this thing for attacks, which is stupid. It's really dumb. It's the reason this game lasted as long as it did. I was actually going to go for a Nightmare Unicorn here as my plan, but I totally forgot I needed monsters with different names, so yeah, that did not pan out there. But it's got a Planet Pathfinder. I'm going to let them destroy one of my Silent Boots here before I Fogblade this Kaiju. Because I didn't need both at this point, if you look at my extra deck. I don't have any rank 3s or anything I can do with 2 Silent Boots at this point, so I'll set, or actually I won't set the Maxx just yet, but I eventually will in order to get a Nightmare Unicorn line. And now, I normally don't fast forward when I'm showing games, but like I said, this one's 27 turns, and from this point forward, it's going to be a lot, I mean a lot of passing, so I'm just going to go ahead and, like I just mentioned, throw it in fast forward here. I'll set the Maxx down and attempt to go into, like I said, my overall long game plan here is to go into Nightmare Unicorn, and then honestly Access Code Talker, because again at this point I thought I should have put back the Sphere mode here. If I put back the Sphere mode there with that Nightmare Unicorn, like I wouldn't have had to deal with it for as long as I did. But like I said, not reading the effect, I just see a 0 defense mode monster and I'm like, oh, okay, well I got this. This is easy. I can just go into Access Code Talker. I'll use that to pop the... Again, if I just popped the Sphere mode there. If I'd popped Sphere mode instead, I could have just attacked Numeron Wall and then attacked for a game. It's so frustrating to look back at this and watch it now. I just want to, like, yell at my past self so badly. But, unfortunately, yeah, the opponent's going to get Archfiend Eccentric and then pop my Access Code Talker. Now, at this point, I'm actually starting to run pretty low on cards in deck, but... I referred back to my deck list, and I noticed that after, you know, going through my graveyard, I was like, oh, I've actually still got Monster Reborn in my deck, so I do still have game. I just got to top deck Monster Reborn. Well, I got to top deck Monster Reborn and also have enough damage on board, which I didn't think was going to be too much of an issue, because Numerons really can't do anything in a situation like this. If they have a monster on board that they can't get rid of, then, you know, they're not able to... you know, clear off their board in order to actually, you know, get their Numeron gates out. Like, if my opponent could just drop their Numeron gates, they'd have this game in the bag, but obviously they can't do that, so... Oh yeah, I went to battle phase there because I once again forgot that you can't attack the Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode, so... good stuff, good stuff. Insert memes about Yu-Gi-Oh! Players not being able to read, etc., etc. Well, that one was actually especially bad because I did read it, I just forgot, so it's not even like I had an excuse, really. Alright, got the Called By. It's gonna be, what, one more turn? Two more turns before I top deck the Monster Reborn. Yep, there's the Ash Blossom. At this point I was also thinking, like, maybe there's a world where my Break Sword actually gets destroyed so I can go for a rank 4 and just make some amount of plays here. But okay, there it is, finally. Finally draw the Monster Reborn, bringing back the Access Code Talker. Finally using the effect to pop the sphere mode, now that I, have read it and know what it does, and then we can attack for lethal. So, yeah, I mean, that duel lasted casually, like, what, 20 plus turns longer than it really needed to, but a win is a win, however long it takes, a win is in fact a win. So we do have one more game to take a look at. Let's jump straight into it. Alright, last duel for this video is going to be against Floowandereeze. This is going to be another one where there's kind of a bit of passing back and forth while I wait for an answer, but it's definitely not going to be 27 turns worth like the last duel was, so. This hand here, a little interesting, but actually definitely not too bad. I see my opponent, of course, is playing Floowandereeze as soon as they play the Advent of Adventure. Definitely glad I have the Effect Veiler in my opening hand. You might have noticed in the profile we're actually not playing any Infinite Permanents. The reason we're not doing that is for the Shade Brigandine. You can't use that if you've got any trap cards in your graveyard. So if you use Grass and Mill and Imperm, then you're not going to be able to use Shade Brigandine for the whole duel. So that's why I have no Imperms, only Veiler in this deck. Although, again, with how little we're using Shade Brigandine, it might even be worth it in this particular variant just to take it out and play Imperms, honestly. But yeah, I'm going to negate the Eaglin, that way my opponent's not able to set up the M-Pen and then their follow-up play. They will still get the Barrier Statue, but I've got the Fiendish Rhino. I mean, I've got a couple of things I can run over it with, rather. I'm going to stick with the Fiendish Rhino. I'll normal summon that. Battle over the Barrier Statue. It should be the last duel, by the way, where we have a Barrier Statue dropped on us for the channel, so that'll be nice. Our opponent is definitely getting their, looks like they're getting their last use of that Royal Barrier Statue here before it gets banned. Actually, it got banned today at the time this video goes up, so, or tomorrow? I guess it'll depend on the timing. No, actually, I think it'll be getting banned tomorrow. Whatever. So the opponent's going to Imperm my Cherubini here. This is totally fine. I've already honestly got pretty much more than, I don't know about more than enough to combo off, but I got enough to combo off anyway. I actually can't go into the Bardish with the Fiendish Rhino Warrior because it's Earth. So I do have to search something in order to be able to go into it. Again, I just decided to get Shade Brigandine because there's typically not much use for it aside from going into Bardish with the Cherubini there. So now that I have a Phantom Knight's monster, I can special the Silent Boots. I'll get out the Leviair. So it's main phase 2. Obviously, I'm not going to be winning the duel this turn. Well, I could with this setup if it was main phase 1, but here I'm just going to go for as many monster effect negates as I can muster up, which is going to be at the very least F0 plus the Fog Blades in this case. I think it's actually just going to be exactly F0 plus the Fog Blades. If I had one more level 3 monster, I could go for the Dark Requiem setup as well, but it's fine. Yeah, this should still be enough, like I said. The fact they have the Rabina and Eaglin already on board also means that they're, like, even if they had, like, top deck another small bird, they're not going to be able to, like, normal summon it and get them back to their hand and then, normal summon them again. Now, without going to battle phase, I bring them into my monsters in order to get them banished, so that's nice too. And then even if they do go for that setup, we can just negate and then take control of the M-Pen there. We actually probably want to, well, it's opponent's monsters, right? Actually, I don't know if M-Pen stops all special summon monsters from using their effects or only opponents. But so I will go for the Nightmare Unicorn and put back the map here. We didn't need to do that, but I wasn't going to really use this Nibiru anyway, so I decided to just go for it. So here my opponent drops a Numbers Evale. I've heard rumors about this particular variant of Floowandereeze, that the Numbers Evale variant, that also uses Sales Band to make an invincible Rongo. Fortunately, my opponent did not have the Sales Band here. They only have the Numbers Evale. So all I have to do is wait out this Heroic Champion Rongo Mina losing enough of its materials. And you saw the opponent tried to run into my F0 only for nothing to happen again. People not knowing this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Do not sleep on that effect. That's very, very relevant. Also, the fact that my opponent tribute set this monster, I know it's a dimension shifter. There's nothing else to tribute set, so. I'll set up some more searching here, just because I can, casually with 3 Fog Blades and an F0 out, in case my opponent summons like any kind of a Floowandereeze monster. I'm going to lose one of my rank 3s to this Rongominad on my opponent's turn, but that doesn't matter, it's not relevant. I actually want them to destroy my Rusty Bardish here, so that way I can go into access code on the next turn. I don't blame my opponent for, you know, attacking over Rusty Bartershed is typically, for any Phantom Knight deck, the one that you want to keep, but the one you want to keep around the most. But in this case, I've already exhausted pretty much all my resources, and again, I would much rather have the Access Code Talker here. That will not only be able to pop the face down card, it's not going to get run over by the Rongominad, and then I can just win on the next turn. I actually don't attack into the Rongominad here, which I should, because it can't be destroyed, but obviously my opponent will still take damage. But I just moved to end phase, just, I don't know. I wasn't thinking, but my opponent's got one top deck here. I know they're not going to be able to do anything meaningful with it, yeah, even with the Upstart Goblins. So yeah, they just end up passing. The Utopic Draco Future can negate any monster effect, not just one on the field. So even if they do have like some kind of disruption in hand somehow, it's still not going to be enough here. Battle with the F-Zero, and then the access code is going to make for lethal. So GG's against Floowandereeze there. Those are the games, and we are now in maintenance. Wow, how about that? How about that timing? Wow, I totally forgot the game was going to drop into maintenance right now. So that actually ended up being ridiculously good timing that I decided to record this video exactly when I did. So normally we would go to the deck list here, but that's obviously not going to be the case. So yeah, I guess we'll just end it here. So thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video when maintenance began on the server. I very, very much appreciate that. I also appreciate those of you who are commenting and or subscribing and checking out the Patreon as well. Definitely appreciate those of you checking out that Patreon there. If you want to see some more exclusive daily content over there, definitely feel free to give it a look. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. So without further ado, this is XLex signing out. Hope you have a fantastic day.